I've got 15 minutes, and I want to describe a little bit of the other end of the spectrum. And the question, in part, for me, is where do good ideas start? And most always, they start small, and they grow out. As all of you know from your companies and various endeavors and things that you do so well, they begin small, and then they build. So let me describe what I think are the bookends of the debate. You just heard one of the bookends, and it's basically this chart writ large. It's the possibilities ahead of us and the kind of things that we can do with enough imagination. And so the cost of various things is renewable energy is dropping, the adoption rate is going up dramatically. If this was a conference, however, of scientists, there would be a different discourse. And so this is the famous Keeling curve. You've all seen it a million times. We're now above 400 parts per million permanently. We're not going back. There'll be no day when, from here on out, I'm told, where CO2 will go below 400 parts per million. And then there's this problem. This is a graphic some of you may have seen that the Washington Post put out a few months ago. This is planet temperature, and by year. And we set the UN at COP21, set a goal of 1.5 degrees centigrade warming. The guardrail for safety used to be 2 degrees centigrade warming, and then it's realized that that's even too high. So 1.5 degrees centigrade warming. And the trend lines, as you can see on this graphic, are not good. We will, unless something very dramatic happens, blow through that 1.5 degrees centigrade warming. So the world that Bill is describing is a world that will occur under duress. And then there's this problem, and it's the elephant in the room in conversations like this. Carbon, once in the atmosphere, stays there for a long time. Now, there'll be some discussion this morning about ways in which we can remove it, but none of those has yet been proven. It's got to be done carbon neutral. It's got to be done at a scale that really impacts the problem. It's got to be done at a speed that is essential given where we are now in terms of carbon and planetary trends. So, and it's got to be affordable. So carbon stays in the atmosphere for a long time. This is not a quick solvable problem. The word solutions gets used very casually. If you ask, can we power the economy by sunshine and efficiency, I think the answer is yes. Does that solve the climate problem at 400 and some parts per million and growing? No, it doesn't, not for a very long period of time. So I want to make that clarification. Now, this is probably the most famous graphic or cartoon in the history of science. And I like this, especially being a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. I believe in miracles now in a way I didn't a couple of days ago. So what do miracles look like on the ground? This is my city of Oberlin, a little town of about 10,000 people, formed in 1832. It was the first city or first college to accept African Americans and graduate them, and the first college to accept women and graduate them also, all back in the 1830s. The first thing that we did, the building that Bill McDonough referred to, is the Adam Joseph Lewis Center, and that building we did in a very extraordinary way. We made it a curricular effort with the design team, including Bill McDonough and Amory Lovins and Carol Franklin and 20-some other people. We made it a curriculum design project, so we brought students into the design effort. And the building they designed has won a bunch of awards, including one that was named one of 52 game-changing buildings in the past 170 years by Construction Design and Building magazine. Now, why they didn't go back to the Parthenon, I don't know, but that's a different issue. That was a joke, by the way. So this building was unique in that it became not a place where education happened, but a place that, by the way, was designed, operated, and maintained, became educational. It is a landscape that includes wild areas, farm, and so forth, and interior shot. This is one of 2 photovoltaic arrays, and that's Sherrod Brown, who may end up being vice president for Hillary Clinton, I don't know. If we'd stopped there, we would not have done very much. And so what we've done is to take the model that we established on an 1.25 acre site and extended this to the size of a city, the city of Oberlin. We're dead center in the Rust Belt, so Detroit's 84 miles away in a straight line. Cleveland is 35 miles to the east. Youngstown's further to the east by another hour. But we said, what does sustainability look like when you put it into this kind of bench lab scale experiment? And so if you say the goal is to be carbon neutral, what does that look like in a size of a small city? If you say you want to grow our food locally, say 70%, which is our target goal, what does that look like? What's housing look like, and so forth? What does the economy look like? What do people do in a sustainable city? So these were the 5 goals that we created, including education on a large scale. And this gets messy because once you get education out of the classrooms, you got into Main Street, then you got city councils, you got all the political messiness that occurs. So we've organized the city around various teams, agriculture, education, economic development, and so forth. We're Rust Belt. And so things in Oberlin, Ohio don't look like the way they do in Snowmass or Aspen or a good bit of California. We're Rust Belt. Detroit's not far away. We used to be the driver in the U.S. economy. Now we've got to figure out a way out of that hole and begin to recreate an economy that works and make it sustainable and, as Bill puts it, joyful and so forth. But it's got to be prosperous. It's got to be fair. It's got to be clean. So this is how we've organized things. This is taken from Danella Meadows' great article, Leverage Points. If you haven't read it, you can Google Dana Meadows Leverage Points and this comes up. And what she does here is important. And what we were asking, we distributed her article to a community shred of about 250 people, and we asked people to begin to think about how you change, where do you intervene in this system called Oberlin? And what she does in the article is start with the things that are least effective. And those are the items at the top. So number 12 and 11 and 10 are things we typically argue about, politics and taxes and so forth. But if you want to change the system, you get down to the bottom. You change paradigms and worldviews. So this is not scriptural. So you could argue that the Voting Rights Act of 1965, in fact, which occurred up at the very top, that's legislation, but also changed the worldviews and paradigms down below. Not as much as it should have, but it had some effect at that level. But we want people to begin to think about how do you change this system called Oberlin. And Dana Meadows also, when you read the article carefully, pointed out that when you get down to paradigm change, you tend to get killed. I mean, think Martin Luther King, Jesus, and so forth. But once you get to that level, it gets risky pretty quick. We needed a driver for the economy. This is a Google map. On the left-hand side of the screen is Tappan Square, a 13-acre block. The main block depicted there is also 13 acres. One of the great art museums in higher education is the very top left-hand corner at the northwestern part of the block. Performing Arts Center in the middle, and then the worst hotel ever built down at the bottom. My boss, the president of the college, is a lawyer. I once said at a gathering like this that the Oberlin Inn was a plausible excuse for limited nuclear war. And he came up to me as a lawyer would do. He says, David, don't ever say that again. He was thinking lawsuit. So I don't say that anymore. But we needed a driver. And what we had, and this gets into the conversation I think that Bill McDonough is asking us to do, it is to begin to make this a big conversation, not just about kilowatt hours and BTUs and so forth, but make it a conversation that is joyful, that includes all parts of the human mind and personality. So what are our assets? Every community has them. We've got a great art museum, performing arts center, great conservatory of music. Can we bundle those into a conversation about sustainability that is at the other side of the brain spectrum? So it's not the fearful side, it's the joyful side. And so this is what we've done in the past couple of years. This is a platinum-rated hotel conference center. It will be completed entirely by the end of the year. It is powered 100% by a photovoltaic array that is located off-site, but we needed a driver, and this became the core of that downtown resuscitation and the vision. And then beyond this, right across the street is a three-building unit, again, gold-rated by the U.S. Green Building Council standards, done by 3 former students of Oberlin. So what we tried to do is begin to rethink the downtown. How do you begin to make this visible? Now, you and I are creatures of sight. We privilege sight in all kinds of ways. 70% of our sensory apparatus is connected directly or indirectly to what we see. And so we tend to believe what we see. The reverse is also true, but that's a different story. So we're trying to make sustainability visible, make it fair and decent and prosperous and so forth. These are the 3 kids that we call them kids because anybody under 45 is a kid for me. That's a New York Times story. And then we wanted to show that sustainability could be done in a way that was also fit our own situation of poverty. And so this is a groundbreaking for this home. It was sold to the woman in the previous slide, a single mother with 2 kids, for $150,000. It's built just slightly below the German passive house standard. She'll never have a utility bill. We want to do 50 more of those. We're in a divided community. We're a battleground state. Oberlin itself, if you get a quarter inch outside the college campus, what people refer to as the People's Republic of Oberlin, we become a red state pretty quick. We started a solar cooperative, and this was the first meeting. We thought that we might have 10 or 15 people at the meeting. We had a full house. People wanted to go solar. The kind of revolution you're talking about here is something that people want to do. So we needed 30 participants to develop a solar co-op and do distributed solar. We had 103 people show up, so we're way, way above the target. This was an array that we did, 11-acre array that we did 4 years ago. If we had done this array last year, the cost of the equipment would have been half of what we put in 4 years before. And this is also the source of power for the hotel. This is the Oberlin project to date. There's lots more going on, but this is the Oberlin project to date. We're a C40 city. We're the asterisk down at the bottom of this long list. We're not even a good-sized tenement building in Beijing. But we've eliminated almost 90% of the carbon in our electric supply. We have done a number of things. We're one of the White House climate champion cities and so forth. But all this is useless unless we can take this further to scale. So the question here, and I want to leave a couple of thoughts here. This is the Rust Belt. Doesn't look like Aspen snowmass. A lot of decayed property. You'll hear more about it a little bit later on this morning. But this used to be the driver in the U.S. economy, and we walked away from it. We disinvested in this region with all the human tragedies associated therewith, and you'll hear more about that. But Flint, Michigan, you know about the water supply, and Detroit, Cleveland, Toledo, Youngstown. Youngstown, Ohio had the highest per capita income of any city in the United States in 1941. Youngstown, Ohio, the highest per capita income. So what we're proposing now is this. And you've all read Jane Jacobs. If you haven't read Jane Jacobs, you've got to do it. Her book's late in her life on economic development, where she said that national economies don't grow. What grows are city-region economies. And so city regions grow by a process she called of import substitution. So if you make it, grow it, process it, service it, buy it locally. And so the idea is very simply this, to use anchor institutions. And for those of you involved in investment, this, I think, is critically important. Could you begin to partner with colleges and universities and zoos and public libraries and healthcare facilities to begin to shift how they spend and how they invest so their money stays in the local economy, exactly like Jane Jacobs proposed. So again, national economies don't grow. City regions, she said, grow. But imagine anchor institutions, all those institutions that will be there for long periods of time, beginning to buy local, invest locally. And so we've targeted 3 things on this slide. Urban development. So green urban development in the case of Cleveland, Youngstown, Detroit, Toledo, this is reinvestment in local communities, all powered by sunshine. And buying local within our region means buying solar collectors from 4 different manufacturers, buying inverters from Detroit firms, electronics from Cleveland firms, but keeping the money again within the region. And then local agriculture. What would it look like to begin to feed our region largely from our own local farms? In Ohio, we used to have 250,000 farms. We now are down to about 35 or 40,000 big mega farms. But begin to switch investment and buying power into that local economy. The collateral benefits of doing this are huge. The difficulties I'll mention just very quickly. You can read the collateral benefits here, but for CFOs, chief financial officers, and chief investment officers, the problem is very simply that if they buy or invest and it costs the institution a little bit more or the returns are a little bit less, then they lose their jobs. So we need to begin to think about this at a much larger scale, and there are 2 different models that I've thought of. One is the farm price support program. So if you're a farmer and you're growing, let's say, soybeans or whatever, and the trigger price is set. And if your income, if the price goes below that, then you get a check. If it goes above it, you're fine. But some way to begin to even out the flows of investment and the prices of things in return on various kind of investments. So the benefits are, I think, quite obvious. The last thing I want to say is this, and I applaud Chip and all of you. The quote on the screen is from Martin Luther King's Fierce Urgency of Now speech. We have to approach our work, your work and mine, with a sense of unprecedented urgency. We don't have time. And so the world that Bill McDonough described in his film, yes, that could all happen, but it is possible that the off-ramp to that world was passed a long time ago. So we have no time. The margin for error, that ramp was passed way back when. So thanks to all of you for doing your work with a sense of urgency, with that fierce urgency of now. That is the spirit with which we have to work. And thank you, all of you, for doing that, and particularly Chip and Sally for being such great exemplars of that principle. So thank you all.